Good afternoon out there. I'm Zach with STAHLS TV. We're going to do a few housekeeping things. Welcome to our live broadcast on understanding ROI, or return on investment. Today's broadcast is going to focus mostly on the decorating equipment that STAHLS has to offer, from DTG to print cut to vinyl cutters to heat presses. We'll talk all about how we make a return on those different investments. So this is, as you probably saw the logo when you logged in, this is a STAHLS TV live classroom. We'll talk a little more at the end of the broadcast about STAHLStv.com and the additional help that you can receive there. Again, I'm Zach. I want to introduce you to some of my friends that are going to be helping me out here this morning or this afternoon for the broadcast. Joe, do you want to step into screen for me? This is Joe. He's our video production manager. He's going to be following me around with the camera. And then answering your chat questions is Jody. I'm going to shoot over to her just where you have a visual. That's Jody. Everybody say hi, Jody. All right. If you guys wouldn't mind, just take a second and type in the chat window, just that audio is good, you can hear me, you can see me. We'll just wait a few seconds to get a few yeses on that before we move on. Okay. Seems like everything is good. So we'll get started. As business owners, we have a lot of decisions to make. And almost every decision that we have to make is based on one of two questions, or the answer to one of two questions, specifically when it comes to investing in equipment or any type of capital expenditure. So the questions that we ask are, how much can we make, or how much can we lose with any particular investment? And of those two questions, the one that is kind of more interesting to me is the one, how much could you lose? And we can really break that down into two additional questions. How much can I afford to lose, and how much am I willing to lose? So it's probably a little strange to start a broadcast on return on investment talking about loss, but at the end of the day, that is the risk that we run with any investment, whether that's a financial investment, a time investment, whatever it is. So one of the principles and goals that we have here at STAHLS TV is to help make your business successful. That's why we have these live classes. It's why we've launched STAHLStv.com, and it's why we're willing to answer your questions when you call in to STAHLS, spending time with you. We want you to be successful, because at the end of the day, if you're not successful, we won't be either. So that's one of the goals and the principles. So we should talk about what it takes to be successful and the risk of not being successful. So I'm going to be using my clipboard here. I hope it's okay with you. I just want to make sure that we cover absolutely everything that we have to cover today. I don't want to miss any points. And in a few short minutes, I'm going to outline exactly what we will be covering on each technology, to where you can hold me accountable through the chat window, and I can hold myself accountable to make sure we cover everything that's going to be of value to you. So we'll start with a statistic that is a bit staggering and probably applies to a lot of us in the classroom today. Did you know that according to Bloomberg, 8 out of 10 entrepreneurs fail in a new business within the first 18 months? So that's kind of a bit of a staggering statistic, because most of us, I would imagine, on the call are entrepreneurs. So let's do a quick survey of the room and see where we stand with that. So Jody is going to launch a poll. You'll have a few seconds to fill it out. So if you could just fill out, just to where we get a feel for the room, how many of you have been in business less than 6 months? How many have been 7 to 18 months in business? How many are 2 to 3 years, which I realize the 18 months and the 2 years plays over, but it's easier to calculate. And then also, how many of you have been in business 3 to 5 years or 5 years plus? So Jody launched that. Just fill it out there on your screen, and we'll report the results back to you here. And I'll make a couple notes just to where we're covering what's important to you. What % of respondents do we have back there, Jody? Okay. All right, 78% of you have chimed in. We'll wait a couple more seconds, and then we'll get the results for you. All right, let's close that off. What do we have result-wise? How many of us have been in business less than 6 months? 23%. 23% of the room. Okay. How many are 7 to 18? 14%. Great. All right. So we have, what is that, 37% of the room kind of potentially in that Bloomberg statistic. What about 2 to 3 years? 9%. 3 to 5? 9%, and 5 plus? 45%. All right, so most of you are already past that initial risk phase of an entrepreneur starting up. So congratulations on that. For those of you who aren't, hopefully today's class will help you make the right decision moving forward with your new business. For those of you who have been in business 5+ years, hopefully this will be the help you make the right decision to make even more money and stay in business even longer. All right, one more poll. What is the largest equipment investment that you've made so far in your business? And we're just going to break it down into kind of the investment ranges that we'll be looking at today for the technologies. So there are 4 ranges. Less than $5,000 is your largest investment. So if you've invested in a heat press, maybe a vinyl cutter, or both. 5 to 15,000, 15 to 30, or 30,000 plus, which a lot of you, if you're screen printers, embroiderers, you're probably in that 30,000 plus range. But we'll wait a few seconds just to fill that out, see where we stand. How close are we there, Jody? 76%. Okay, just a few more seconds. Please just take a second to fill out the question on the screen, and we'll report the results back to you here. All right, let's close it up and see what we have. So how many of us have made an investment? Our largest investment is less than $5,000. 26%. Okay. How about 5 to 15,000? 43%. All right, a lot of us in that range. How about 15 to 30,000? 17%. And anybody invested 30,000 plus? 13%. Okay. So we are all over the board there, but most of us have made equipment investments between $5,000 and $15,000 to start our business out, and that's actually pretty typical. So thanks for filling those surveys out, and we'll ask you to fill out some more as the class goes on here today and also at the end. But today we're going to take a closer look at 4 different potential equipment investments. So a lot of you are already invested, I would assume, in decorating equipment, but you may be looking to branch out and see what else is out there, what's the right decision for you. So you noticed earlier when we were talking about loss, I didn't necessarily specify that we were going to talk about financial loss. I did mention, however, that we would talk about the risk of giving up our time or giving up other opportunities for things that we're choosing. It's not just about money. So as we look at these technologies, we'll be sure to cover the cash investment. That'll be the first thing that we cover, but also the time risk and the opportunity cost. So let me quickly just outline the approach to each technology here, and then we'll start to dig in. So first, we're going to define the initial investment or the cash risk that's associated with each technology. So we'll give you an investment range of how much cash that you will have to put out to get started with any one of these decorating technologies. Next, we're going to discuss the potential for return. So this is where the return on investment really comes in. You'll start to see some numbers of how much you can make per piece, what are all of the different pieces that you can make. So we'll be sure to cover that. We also want to talk about the time in the production process for each one of these pieces of equipment, because it is production. You don't just invest in a piece of equipment and it starts to make money for you. You put time into production. So we're going to cover potential bottlenecks. We'll talk a little bit about capacity concerns as well. And then that will lead us ultimately into opportunity costs, which, if you don't know what an opportunity cost is, basically a simple definition is you can't do 2 things at once. So we're going to look at which opportunity provides the most return on investment. If you're doing selling, you can't be doing production at the same time. So which of these technologies gives you the best opportunity to return investment on it? All right, one more poll before we dig into direct-to-garment printers to start with. And that poll is, do you already own one? So it's a simple yes or no. If you could fill that out, do you own a direct-to-garment printer? Take a few seconds and wait for you. Percentage-wise, where are we? 67% of you have responded. Okay. Just a few more seconds, and then we'll actually get to printing here. All right, let's close it up and see what we have.
18% yes.
Okay.
18% no.
All right, so 18% of the room already owns a direct-to-garment printer, and the remaining 82% do not. Okay, sounds good. So what I'm going to do is talk about the initial investment, but I'm going to move over to the machine to do it. So I'm going to switch to Joe's camera, and he's essentially going to follow me around the room today. So the initial investment in a direct-to-garment printer, it varies based on obviously the model that you're going with. The model that STAHLS represents is the Epson, so we're just going to use that for our purposes today, but the general investment level is going to be the same across different versions of machine. So the Epson direct-to-garment printer ranges, depending on the available rebates, between $16,000 and $20,000. We can use the $20,000 range as an easy go-to. So the Epson direct-to-garment printer is an investment of $20,000. However, as most of you probably know if you've already done some research, you don't just need a direct-to-garment printer to print directly onto t-shirts. So in addition to that $20,000, you need a pre-treat solution. So there's one of three ways to pull that off. You can pre-treat by hand with a spray gun. That's probably our least recommended method because it's difficult to get consistency in your spray pattern. You can use an air-operated or a small tabletop machine that ranges anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 depending on the brand that you go with. Or you can get a large spot treatment system. They range anywhere from $6,000 to $8,000, sometimes upwards of $9,000. So the one that we'll be working with today, just to show you how the process works when we get into production, is going to be the spot treatment system. So you have the Epson DTG at about 20 grand. You have a spot treatment system. This is just an example of the high-end pre-treat. This is the Viper XPT 6000. This particular one runs about 7 grand. So you'll see we'll be loading our shirts onto there. In addition to these two pieces of equipment, you also need a heat press. So the heat press that we'll be showing you today is the Hotronix Fusion. In addition to the press itself, there are some other supplies that you want to get to go along with it, and we'll explain more about that. But you see this upper platen cover, this lower platen cover, and then we'll also show you some optional platens later. So when all is said and done with, a DTG investment is going to be somewhere, for today's purposes, we'll say about $25,000 for the machine, for the pre-treat, and for the heat press. So that just gives us a general idea. Some will be a little bit less, some will be a little bit more, depending on your unique situation and what you want to accomplish. But the average DTG investment, with all things considered, is going to be around $25,000. So that's our starting point. Let's see. So potential return. Let's walk over to the DTG. Actually, we're going to come back to the pre-treat, Joe, if you want to wait here. And we'll kind of cover potential return along with the part, or walking through the process. So what can a direct-to-garment printer make? Basically, you have some other items that aren't t-shirt based that you can print, like some bags. But the limitation of direct-to-garment, for the most part, is that an item has to be close to 100% cotton. 100% cotton, ring-spun cotton, is the recommended t-shirt style that you print. You can print all the way down to 50-50, but you lose some print quality. So for today's purposes, we're going to say that the direct-to-garment printer can make full-color 100% cotton t-shirts. So we'll get into a little computer graphic and talk about exactly what you can return on that in a second. But let me show you the parts of the process first. So we start with our t-shirt. A black t-shirt is probably going to run you somewhere between $3 and $4. If you're printing on a white t-shirt, it's probably going to be about $1.50, again, give or take, depending on who your supplier is. But the process is this. We pre-treat our shirt, and the purpose, we will only pre-treat shirts that are going to be receiving white ink. So the purpose of the pre-treatment is to make the shirt accept white ink. So the white ink doesn't naturally stick to the cotton fibers that are in the shirt. It sticks to the pre-treatment solution that essentially builds a foundation for the white ink to lay on. So I'm just going to hit this button here. Now, one of the costs of doing business here we have to consider not only the equipment investment, but our consumable costs. So our consumable here in the pre-treatment process is obviously pre-treatment fluid. So I'm just going to spread this fluid out a little bit, make sure it's all over the shirt to create a really good base for it. I'm going to use this brush here. So pre-treatment fluid can vary in cost depending on the brand of pre-treatment that you're using, but you can count on anywhere from a gallon of it costing you somewhere around between $40 and $60, which we'll break down what that means per shirt here in a little bit. So after the pre-treatment process, we move to the heat press. Pull that off of there. Again, we're using the Fusion heat press. So I am going to pull that out. I'm going to thread the shirt here just like I did on the pre-treatment machine. All threading means is kind of like loading it screen print style to where the platen is inside of the shirt. Right. And throw this under the press. Now the pre-treatment solution that I'm using today requires about 60 seconds of cure time at the highest pressure that my heat press can achieve. And what that does is it mats down the fibers in the shirt. It mats down the fibers in the shirt, and it also dries out the pre-treatment fluid. So this is going to be locked down for 60 seconds at 350 degrees. While we wait on that, Jody, do we have any questions coming through that we need to answer? No questions yet. Okay, great. If you have any questions, feel free to just the chat window there, add those in, and Jody can interrupt me, or we'll take periodic breaks to answer those. So when considering this investment, not only again do we talk about the financial risk of the $25,000, the pre-treatment fluid is a consumable to every shirt that we run, but we have this time invested in pre-treating the shirt, in curing that pre-treatment. After this, we're going to go directly to the printer and print a full-size graphic. So we have 60 seconds here in curing the pre-treatment fluid. So while this is curing, again, the Fusion press here is not an automatic open that I'm using, so I have to stand here and wait for this to open. So if DTG is the right investment for you, we would actually end up recommending a heat press that allows you to walk away from it while it's curing the pre-treat. But you'll see why later that I'm using the Fusion press. So we're going to go over to the printer. I'll remove this blank shirt that I have here. And again, going to load this the same way I loaded the pre-treat machine. And actually, I need to drop my platen down on the printer to a 2 for t-shirt. So all this is the distance that the shirt is going to be from the print head. I had it up at a 0 because I was doing some test prints earlier. So drop that to a 2, load the machine. Make sure we're flat here. Need a flat surface. And I already have my graphic loaded via my USB drive. And we'll just click OK to start printing. While that's printing, we'll talk a little bit about ink cost. And then again, once we're through the process, we'll go over to the computer and pull up a spreadsheet and kind of show you some scenarios that we can work with. So the ink cost for the Epson machine is somewhere between 33 to 38 cents per milliliter. The average shirt, this shirt that we're going to print here, is probably going to cost us about $3 to $4 in ink usage. So what happens on the dark shirts is it has to lay down a significant amount of white ink to lay the color on top of it, because the ink that is in here, if we did not pre-treat or lay down white ink, the CMYK ink is just going to essentially show through the shirt. You'll have a lot of strike through and you won't really be able to make out your design. So you're seeing right now worst case scenario for cost on a t-shirt. You can see up here we printed a white shirt which didn't require any white ink. So this white shirt is 1, less expensive than a black. 2, it doesn't require white ink, which is the majority of our ink usage. 3, it doesn't require any pre-treatment fluid for the CMYK ink to stick. So this print, compared to the exact same thing on a dark shirt, is significantly less expensive. A dark shirt, again, $3 to $3.50. This print may be in the 50 to 75 cent range once we do our ink calculation. So the Epson machine lays down the white first, and then it's going to come back and print the CMYK on top. And maybe some of you are timing this. This should take about 3 to 4 minutes for print time for this particular design to do the white and come back and do the color. Jody, do you have any questions at the moment while this is printing?
Yes. Does the upper platen cover require additional curing time?
Okay, the question is, does the upper platen cover require additional curing time? The answer in the direct-to-garment process is no. It's actually designed to use that upper platen cover. You could probably see while Joe was over there the steam coming off of the garment. So the upper platen cover is protecting the inside of the machine from that steam, because eventually, if you don't use that, it can get in there and rust out. Now, if you kept that upper platen cover on the machine to do other heat applications, yes, you would be looking at adding additional time for a screen printed transfer, a CAD cut transfer, so on and so forth. We would actually recommend you take it off before printing those other items, if at all possible. Was there another question?
Yes.
Okay.
Can you pre-treat several shirts ahead of time, and how long will the pre-treatment last?
Okay, the question is, can you pre-treat several shirts ahead of time, and how long will the pre-treatment last? The answer to the first question is yes, you can pre-treat ahead of time. We actually, when we exhibit at trade shows, we'll pre-treat up to a week or two in advance and send them, ship them to the trade show. We don't recommend leaving them sit longer than that 1 or 2 week period, and even then, if you let them sit for 2 weeks, before you press, or before you put them on the machine to print, you would want to heat press them one more time just to knock the moisture out. It would not have to be for the full 60 seconds, maybe 10 or 15, just to make sure all the moisture is out of there, because the shirts or the cotton will pick back up moisture from the humidity in the air, and it's important that it has as little of that as possible in it. Any other questions right now? Okay, great. So the Epson has printed the white ink. It has pulled the shirt back in, and it is printing the color. Once this is done, we have yet another step in the process to do, and that is curing the ink that is on the shirt. And we'll go back to our Fusion heat press to do that, but that is another 60 seconds. So once we take this off of here and take it to the Fusion press, we'll let it do its thing and head over to the computer and kind of take a look at real numbers and what you would have to sell to begin making money on shirts. If you're putting the numbers together in your head right now, a black shirt, again, at $2.50, $3, you have $2.50, $3 in ink. So you're sitting at $6 to $6.50 in cost on this shirt. Depending on your market and who you're selling to, is really going to depend on if this investment is right for you. So we'll talk a little bit about it, but if you're selling this shirt wholesale, it'll command a completely different price than if you're selling it retail one-off on a website, or if this was part of a 24, 36, or 48-piece job. All right, so we're done printing. I am going to remove the hoop, place it over here. I'm going to take the shirt off. Now you or your operator does have to be careful when moving over to the heat press. If the shirt lays on itself, it will smear the ink. Right, so I'm going to thread the shirt, making sure my print area will be completely under the press. On this particular press, we have a nice advantage on here in that we don't want to make very hard contact on this ink, because it will cause the ink to spread out and can ruin the print. So that's another risk that we have to consider when we're printing. I am going to back off the pressure here significantly, essentially to where the press is going to hover over the ink when it's locked down. Right, just going to leave it right there, not even going to engage pressure, and we need to leave it for about 60 seconds. Do we have any questions in the meantime? Okay.
If I'm going to pre-treat ahead of time, is there a recommended way to store my pre-treated shirt?
The question is, if you're going to pre-treat shirts ahead of time, is there a recommended way to store the pre-treated shirts? The recommended way would be in as little amount of humidity as possible. So if you have silicone packs and you can put them in plastic bins, that would be ideal, or in just some type of humidity environment, wherever that is. I mean, it in a screen print shop where you're reclaiming screens to pick up any humidity from that. So as humidity as possible. Any other questions, Jody? Okay. All right. So this is probably just about done being cured. We will pull this up. All right. You can see the steam coming off of it there. And we're all done. All right. So let's head over to the computer. Unless there are any more questions on production at the moment. and talk a little bit about costs of doing business with direct-to-garment printing. Okay, I'll get this out of the way. Head to the computer, and Jody, if you can switch us over, that would be great. Right. Okay, so what you see on the screen is an ROI calculator that is available on STAHLS.com. So what this calculator is going to give you the ability to do is get online, put in what you think you're going to sell, because at the end of the day, that's kind of the risk that we're taking, is that we have to sell for the equipment that we invest in. So what you think you're going to sell, your average costs, and your labor costs, and it will output how long it will take you to return on that investment. So we'll just put in a couple scenarios. If somebody wants to chime in on the chat, how many number of white garments do you think you can sell monthly with a direct-to-garment printer? And we'll use your numbers. If anybody wants to chime in there. Anything? All right, I'll make it up myself. All right, so the number of white garments sold monthly, let's just say you have a 20-day working month and you're selling somewhere around 3 garments a day. So 60 white garments. Let's assume that we're selling these retail and we can command a retail price of about $11. The number of color garments sold monthly, this would be for black, red, whatever color you want. Let's just say that's that you can do 10 of those a day. So we'll do 200. And the retail price would be about 14 bucks. Again, this is just for comparison purposes. Some of you have built businesses where you can get $25, $30 for a black t-shirt. It all depends on what the customer needs, how quick the turnaround, and the size of the order. So we will make that assumption that it's 14 bucks. So average cost of a blank white garment, we have it in here at $195. Maybe you get them cheaper at $150. Maybe it's a little more at $250. But this will give you an idea. Average cost of a blank color garment, $250. So the average ink cost per white garment, this would be using no white ink, which is what we talked about over at the machine, is about 50 cents. And that's based on a 10 by 10 design, essentially. So about 50 cents per white garment. And then the average ink cost and pre-treat cost per color garment, this would be one that uses white ink, and this includes the pre-treatment fluid, is about $235. So that's what we're guesstimating. This hourly labor cost, if some of you are owner-operators, maybe you don't have any labor that you need to pay, but you should put something in here just to make sure you're paying yourself if you don't do that. So let's just say we're happy making $15 an hour. So that puts your labor cost per garment based on this at 81 cents and maintenance cost per garment at 56 cents. So as most of you probably know, with direct-to-garment printing, one of the biggest concerns is the maintenance and how much you actually spend in ink that goes down the waste tubes rather than onto a shirt. So with the Epson machine in particular, maintenance is, they've dealt with a lot of the maintenance issues that are typical with direct-to-garment printers. So the average maintenance cost per month in ink is somewhere between $130 to $150. So our calculator is dividing that over the number of shirts that we're printing. So we're at almost 300 shirts, and at $150 a month, you can see it puts us at about 50 cents per garment. So that number will adjust based on the number of garments you're printing. But the more garments you print, the lower that it is, because it's a pretty fixed cost in that $120 to $150 a month range for the maintenance that's required. So your total cost, outside of the initial equipment investment, just the cost of doing business to print shirts, to print 260 shirts a month, is about $1,473.25. Now, the initial investment over here, we have, as you can see, $19,000 for the printer. We're using a pre-treatment machine that maybe is $3,900 and the autoclam's $1,450, which puts us at a total initial investment of around our $25,000 range, which we said at the beginning of $24,340. So to calculate, we just click our calculate button here, and your return on investment is 12 months. So if for a year you sell 260 garments a week at this breakdown and at this average retail price, you will have your machine, your initial equipment investment of $25,000 paid off after 12 months, or 3,120 printed garments. And this gives you an idea, if you continue at that pace, how much profit you would actually make years after. So you have been paid $15 an hour, or your operator has been paid $15 an hour, and you've paid for the equipment over a 12-month period. So, do we have any questions, Jody, before I go on? Okay, no questions. Great. That either means I'm doing a great job or absolutely terrible, and there's just too many to type in. So, all right. So that gives you an idea there. Now, the risk that we talked about earlier is the limitation of the actual technology. So a lot of the stuff a lot of the ideas that we're going to be covering moving forward from the direct-to-garment is all of the other items that you're able to print. So with the direct-to-garment printer, as we said, we recommend 100% cotton. It's white and colored t-shirts, some bags, anything basically that you can fit on the direct-to-garment plat. And so your potential for sales is in t-shirts, which a lot of your customers need. When we think about profit per piece, if most of your business ends up being wholesale, you're obviously going to have to print a lot more shirts to make the same amount of money that you would have to do printing retail, where your profit per garment could be upwards of $15 or $20, where wholesale you're probably more in that $3, $5, $8 range per garment that you're making. But again, everybody's situation is a little bit different. Your customer base is going to be different. Want to give you the basics of what it costs to do business, and you can kind of plug some of those numbers in for yourself at stahls.com and see how long it'll take you to return on that investment. All right, so another challenge with any one of the technologies that we look at today, specifically the ones where you will be printing and or cutting in-house, is artwork. It's a big concern. We'll talk about it at every step of the way. For the direct-to-garment printers, the artwork that you need is a bitmap file. So that is a JPEG, that is a PNG file, that is a TIFF. Those your customers hopefully have already, or your graphic artist or someone you contract out to can create those for you. What you don't want to do is take a file off of the internet and try and print it directly onto a shirt, because those files are significantly smaller. They're 72 kilobytes or 96 kilobytes typically, where a file that's at 300 DPI, or at the minimum 150 that you need for direct-to-garment printing, are probably going to be in the meg to 3 meg range. So that can give you some clue there. And you want it at that 150 to 300 DPI at the final size that you're going to be printing. So artwork-wise, STAHLS has a solution that you can use. It's called cadworkslive.com, and it's filled with clip art templates, full-color graphics, single and two-color graphics as well that you can use. And we also have Great Dane graphics that you can use as well for direct-to-garment printing, and that's full-color artwork that you should consider as part of your investment if you're not an artist yourself. A lot of us who own businesses kind of get into it and don't realize how much artwork is going to play a part in what we do, and we have to learn CorelDRAW, or we have to learn Adobe Illustrator or Photoshop to do business. Well, there are solutions out there that you can contract out that artwork. Just consider that as part of the initial investment that you're going to return on, because at the end of the day, artwork does sell shirts, and we have solutions for you for that. All right. Any other questions or comments on direct-to-garment printing before we move into print and cut? I'll just give you a second if you have anything. If you do later, you can come back with it. No? Okay. So you may have noticed just one more note to talk about capacity with direct-to-garment printers. With the Epson direct-to-garment printer, you could see on our ROI calculator that if you're going to be printing more than 600 shirts in a week, then you want to start considering multiple units, depending on how many shifts you run, do you have employees, so on and so forth. So 600 is really that breaking point where your guy in production is going to be absolutely overrun with the amount of business that you have, which is an awesome problem to have. But you can count on probably about 600 shirts a week for the average user off of the Epson direct-to-garment printer, combined with a pre-treat machine and a heat press, just to give you an idea. So if you're selling more than 600 a week for that technology, start to think about 2, or start to think about alternative options, contracting it out. Okay, let's move on to print and cut. How many of you, we're going to launch a poll here just to get an idea again of where we stand. So direct-to-garment printers, we had 18% in the room owned a direct-to-garment printer. How about print and cut machines? It's a yes or no question. Do you own a print and cut device? Wait a few seconds. And while we wait, if it's all right with you, I'll grab a drink here, battling a cold. All right, yeah, let's have those numbers.
36% yes, 64% no.
All right, 36% of the room currently is invested in print cut technology, and 64% is currently not, maybe considering it. Okay, so with the direct-to-garment printer, we said the initial investment was about $25,000, again, give or take, depending on how invested you get and which model you go with. When it comes to print and cut, and we're actually going to tie up kind of vinyl cutter as part of this. We'll do print and cut first and then move to vinyl cutter because a lot of the things that you can make are the same. But print and cut machines range anywhere from $8,000 all the way upwards of $30,000, just to give you an idea. And there's a lot of differences in the machines. Most of them are speed differences, so the $8,000 machine prints slower than the $30,000 machine, which affects the capacity that you have. And they also are different in width. The machine that we're actually going to show to you today is the smallest, around the $8,000 investment machine. It's called the Roland BN20. And there are investment levels all the way up to $30,000. There's 8, 12, 16, 20, 25, 30, essentially is kind of the breakdown there. So let's show you the parts of that process to where you understand it. So Joe, I'm going to switch to you if you want to follow me here. And again, if you have questions, please feel free to chat those in. All right, so this particular unit is the, as I said, the Roland BN20. So it's 20 inches wide. That's not total footprint. The 20 inches wide is the size roll that you can load inside of the machine. So you have a 20-inch width. This particular machine, actually, the printable width, because you have some pinch rollers and other items in there, media clamps, your workable width is 18.9 inches. So you have a print and cut machine, which gives you the ability to make a number of different things. So you can make, the machine itself will make heat transfers, it will make decals, it will make posters, it will make banners. But those heat transfers and those decals can apply to a number of different things. So we'll just give you a quick overview. So heat transfer-wise, STAHLS manufactures material specifically designed for these print and cut machines to apply to basically any fabric. So here we have an umbrella that we've heat pressed to. Here we have a CD case, if anybody buys CDs anymore, I'm not sure. Here is a tote bag that we've printed to, again with a heat transfer that came off of the machine. So this machine is making the heat transfer, and then you combine this machine with a heat press to decorate a lot of these items. Let's stick on the heat transfers. Here we have decorated a hat with a full color graphic. Here we've decorated a leather belt with a full color graphic. Another heat transfer, and this is actually the material that we're printing here today, is called Sublistop. This is a heat transfer for performance fabric. So it applies at a very low temperature, and it minimizes or mitigates the dye migration that you can experience on 100% polyester color fabrics. We're going to go behind Joe here, ask you to turn around. This is another heat transfer for a football jersey. Here we have more performance wear. We have photo quality graphics and heat transfers. Again, applying to polyester, applying to cotton, applying to nylon. You name the fabric, STAHLS manufactures a material that can run through a print cut machine that you can heat apply to. Here even we have a metallic white finish. So that's another thing that we can talk about, especially when we get into vinyl cutters, is the different finishes that you can achieve with heat transfers that can apply to almost anything. All right, so that's the apparel. Here we've decorated a koozie, again, with a heat transfer. So non-apparel, here we have made a decal to go on a mug. Usually the question is it dishwasher safe? No, it's not, but you can hand wash it. So it's great for a promotional item. The machine will also print posters, so you can print directly to poster paper. Again, and these are just all ideas of different ways that you can return on that $8,000 to $30,000 investment. We also have some more non-apparel over here, Joe. We have a satin canvas that we've printed with metallic ink. So we print directly to the satin canvas, and one more step in this process is we wrapped it around a frame. So you can frame artwork, photos, family photos. This is a really big seller, and you'll see when we get into our spreadsheet exactly how much you can make off of some of these items. And then if you want to pan up to the wall, this is a repositionable wall graphic. This was printed on a fabric repositionable material. Obviously, our 20-inch machine probably isn't the best for printing this type of graphic, but the larger machines can pull that off. And then I don't have one here to show you, but it'll also print onto banners, and we'll show you a few other items in our spreadsheet. So for the $8,000 to $30,000, you can print onto all of these items with just a print cut machine and a heat press. And I'll show you a little bit more about the heat press as the class goes on and how exactly we're printing onto all of these items, just to give you some more ideas. So we talked about the initial investment. We talked about the parts of the process, which is essentially the print cut machine itself and the heat press. We'll talk a little bit about software here in a minute when we actually send a job to it. We talked about what you can make from all of these items. There's actually more items that you can make. We have people coming up with things literally every week and telling us some cool new things that they're making with their print cut device. One of the other things that we'll talk about, or that we'll show you, especially on the vinyl cutter side, is the difference in finishes that you can get. When you're printing direct to garment, you're getting a screen print-like finish. It's just the ink that you have on there. When you're printing with a print cut machine or cutting with a vinyl cutter, you can glitter finishes, metallic finishes, raised finishes, all different types of finishes that can all increase your return on that investment, because you can sell a t-shirt for a little bit more with a glitter graphic on it than you can with a flat screen print graphic on it. And the same thing with the items that you can print. Your profit per item on a t-shirt, if we're saying we're making a t-shirt, let's just say for $5, and we can sell it for $10, we're making $5 there. If a performance wear shirt, much like this one, it maybe costs us $15 to print versus $5, but we can sell it for upwards of $30, to where we're making $15 off of the same transfer and the same lockdown of the heat press. All we're doing is upgrading our garment with this process to increase our return on investment. All right. One of the other things to consider before we show you the process is the probability. There was a study done by Market News, and most of you probably know, most of us have been in business for 5+ years, that it's a lot easier to sell additional items to an existing customer than it is to acquire a new customer with any one of our items. So when you invest in a print cut machine or a vinyl cutter or a heat press, you are opening up your existing customer base to being able to purchase all of these items from you. Actually, the number was that an existing customer is 60 to 70% more likely to buy from you than a new customer. A new customer, their average close ratio was about 5 to 20%. The close ratio on an existing customer is 60 to 70%. All right, I'll check with Jody to see if there's any questions before we actually show you the print cut process.
There is one.
Okay, we have one.
How hard is it to change ink styles, like metallic to normal or the other way around?
Okay, so the question is, how difficult is it to change ink styles from metallic to normal or the other way around? The way that the Roland machine works, it is a single ink set for any material that you're going to run through it. Joe, if you want to take a look here, this particular unit we have inked up with cyan, magenta, yellow, and black, and you see 2 magentas. So when you purchase the machine, you make a decision of the ink set that you want to use. It's all eco-solvent ink. You can also include a white ink in place of this magenta or a metallic ink in place of this magenta. Now let me tell you the pros and cons of both. Joe, if you want to come back here. The white ink we would recommend if you think you're going to sell a lot of clear static clings or decals. The white ink in the Roland machines, or actually in most of the print cut machines, is not compatible with heat transfer material. It's not going to wash well. Now the standard CMYK, 50+ washings with most heat transfer, with our heat transfer materials, but the white ink does not rate as high. So we actually don't recommend white ink for use on clear heat transfer materials, but for clear static clings or for clear decals. You'll notice the material that we're printing on here today is a white base. Again, the CMYK eco-solvent ink is transparent, so this white is giving the ink essentially its color or its opacity. The metallic ink, again, similar to the white, not really compatible with the heat transfer materials. It doesn't test out in our wash tests. So you can use it on decal material, but the metallic ink is not a true solvent or eco-solvent ink, so it requires additional lamination. So there would be additional investment in that part of the process into a laminator and into laminate that you could add in to your jobs, which we can show you on our cost calculator to give you an idea of how much exactly that would cost. But when you purchase the machine and get it installed by your dealer, you make that decision up front which way you're going to go. Any other questions? Hope that answered that one for you.
Why do you double up on the magenta?
Why do you double up on the magenta is the question. That's actually just the way that Roland has the machine configured. So in the larger machines, the 30 and 54 inch, there's multiple ink setups. The new VSI series, I think you can set up the inks 6 or 7 different ways. So they have a cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. They have 8 cartridges versus the 5. So if you choose not to go with metallic and white on the metallic or white on the BN20, you substitute a magenta. Why Roland chose to use that color, I actually don't know, but they did. On the VSI series, again, it has 8 cartridges to use with it versus the 4 or the 5. So you can have cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. You can also add a light cyan, a light magenta, a light black, and a white or a metallic. So the reason they give you that 8-color setup is you can achieve a wider color gamut with that light cyan, light magenta, and light black, especially in your oranges, your greens, and your grayscale or your gray tones. And flesh tones come out a lot better with that light black. If you really just want it for high production printing and you don't need that extended color gamut, you can ink up the VSI machines with 2 of each CMYK. So that just gives you a more high-speed printing. Hope that answers the question. What else do we have, Jody?
How long do the cartridges last?
All right, good question. How long do the cartridges last? It does depend, obviously, on how much printing you're doing, but the easiest answer to that question is the ink is actually the least expensive part of the print and cut process, where on the direct-to-garment printing, the ink is our only, outside of the pre-treat solution, consumable part, or a consumable thing that happens on every job. The ink in the Roland machine, it breaks down to about 25 to 35 cents per square foot in actual usage. So, or 1/10 of a penny to 2/10 of a penny per square inch, depending on what you're printing and how much ink you're putting down. So, to kind of answer the question more directly, when you ink this machine up, the BN20 at least, you could probably get about 1,000 10x10 prints out of the initial ink set that you have. And we'll deal more with those ink costs as we dig into some of our cost calculators and return on investment. Any other questions, Jody?
No, that's all.
Okay, so we know a lot of the things that we can make. We talked about some of the finish differences, and we'll show you that. So let's just show you the process of print and cut. And I'm actually going to ask Jody to switch back to the computer, and I want to show you the RIP software that comes with the machine. Okay, so we'll get out of the Epson here and pull up our RIP software. So the software that you'll be looking at is called Roland VersaWorks. And what VersaWorks does is it takes an EPS or a PDF file out of CorelDRAW or Adobe Illustrator, and the software essentially tells the machine how to handle the colors, which I'll show you here. So we bring in our graphic. I'm printing on the BN20. This is the graphic that I'm looking at. So you get some information here from the software. You get the file size, you get the file name, you see the page size that you're working with. If we were inked up with metallic or white, this is where it would tell us if we've prepared our file to use the metallic or the white ink. And this tells us the material that we're printing on, which will actually tell the machine here in a minute. So let's double click on this and open up our job settings. So we start with the layout. And this, for your benefit, I mean, this is about how long it takes to set up a job outside of Corel and Illustrator. Again, when you dig into Corel and Illustrator for the print cut process, you need to send a graphic with a vector line around it. Now, anything inside of that vector line can be a bitmap, just like your direct-to-garment printing, but you do have to have a hard edge which you'll see as we go through the print, cut, and weeding process. You won't be able to get feathered edges or see your design fade into the garment with print and cut. So we are connected, if we were connected to the printer, which I'm a little bit away from it right now, but it would tell us how much space we have to work with. We tell it how many copies of the design that we want. So we say 5 copies for the BN20. Let's actually go ahead and make this 10 copies. So you can see on the right hand side it adjusts to the 10 copies there. You see them pop up. Under the quality tab on the left hand side, we click that. Here we choose the media type that we're going to be printing on. So this has what are called print profiles built into it. STAHLS has also made some custom print profiles for their heat transfer materials. What the print profile does is it tells it tells the machine the resolution to print at, how much ink to lay down, how much time to leave between printing and cutting, and the temperature that the heaters on the machine should be set at to where the material is most receptive to the ink and it dries as it comes off of the machine and you're ready to heat press immediately after. So we're printing on a textile heat transfer material, the SuperTech Sublastop. Here we have our print quality. So you can print standard, draft, or draft 2 on the BN20, and this gives you an idea of how long the print time is going to take on the right hand side. So draft, as you can see, the resolution is 1440 by 720 dpi. That is actually more than enough resolution. You won't see any image loss. Even if we went to draft, if you went to draft 2, you would probably start to see a difference, but the draft and the standard printing at 1440 by 1080 versus 1440 by 720, there is minimal difference, especially when you're dealing with vector graphics and printing onto heat transfer material. So you tell it the print quality that you want. It gives you an estimate of how long it's going to take to print. We go to, on the left-hand side, to our printer controls. And here, under other controls, we want to make sure we're just using our default media settings. Again, it gives it all the information about dry time, vacuum power, head height. And when I show you the software tied to the VSI series, it'll also show you the dryer settings for that particular material. So we click OK if we want 10 of those. If you can see, I think you can, if I zoom in here, there is a line that looks like marching ants around the graphic. That is showing us where the machine is going to cut. We have that cut line built into the ink to where we have a bleed out to where all you're going to see is the ink that we're printing. We're not going to have a white outline to where it looks like a sticker once it gets onto the shirt. So we'll click OK. We are ready to send to the printer. I am going to move around the room here, disconnect my computer and connect into the printer over here. Still looking at the software. I'll move for you in just a second. The BN20 connects via USB. All right, we're going to go to Joe's camera. And I am just going to hit the print button here. And you can see we have a print status. So what's going to happen, the machine's going to heat up to where it needs to be, and then it will start printing. And then it's going to come back and do a contour cut around that graphic. So while it's doing that, I will actually, let's see, if I can cut this design off, I'll show you the process to where we're not spending a lot of time watching this print. But pulled it back in there for us. Okay. Any questions so far, Jody?
Yes. How is kids' clothing with the solvent?
Okay. The ink that comes with the roller machine is an eco-solvent, and the vast majority of the materials that STAHLS manufactures are CPSIA compliant. So you are CPSIA compliant using this process.
What are some suggestions for good sources for contract custom artwork?
What are some suggestions for good sources for contract custom artwork? That's a good question. There's a lot of them out there. As far as custom goes, I know stock artwork. We have Great Dane Graphics. I would actually recommend you to him because I know he does some custom work and he could point you in the right direction. He does artwork for screen printing, for direct-to-garment printing, for print and cut, and also for vinyl cutting. One of the other things that you can do, there's a website out there that I use occasionally. It's called Fiverr.com. It's Fiverr.com. And the gist of the website is it's all types of contractors who are out there, and every job that they do is $5. So that's the max they can charge, but you can see lots of examples of their work there. I've used that for quite a few things personally. So Fiverr.com I would recommend for some custom artwork. You can also look at Thumbtack.com. Again, it's another aggregator of a bunch of contractors out there around the world, really, not just in the U.S., that you can give your job specifications, and you can have people come back to you and bid on it. You can actually receive 3 to 5 different quotes on your job by using that service. So that's Thumbtack.com. I would check those out. Any other questions, Jody? Okay. So we're waiting for our print cut machine to heat up and start printing. What I can do is grab a shirt and show you one that we already did and kind of skip a step in the process and come back to it here in a minute. So let me grab a t-shirt. All right, Joe, if you want to come back to the press here. So I just grabbed a cotton t-shirt that we're going to print with one of the print cut graphics that we already made. Then after this, we will go back to the computer and give you an idea of the return on investment on all these different items that I showed you. All right, so we can load our shirt onto there. Now, this particular material, just for lack of a bunch of heat presses in the room here today for all these different technologies, this particular material applies as low as 280 degrees, as high as 320. We're going to try applying it today at 350 and make it work. So it has a charcoal backing, this particular material, the Sublastop, and that is used to inhibit dye migration on 100% polyester. And the adhesive is our patented Sticks to adhesive, so this will actually stick to any of the heat transfer items that I showed you today. So we'll do a quick left chest placement right here, and we have a cover sheet underneath. Want to make sure, since we are attempting to overheat this, that it doesn't do anything to our platen. So you see we have the material, we have the ink, and we have this mask, which we'll show you in the process here in a little bit, that we have to calculate into our cost of doing business. So we'll load that up. We'll give it a quick, I'll adjust my pressure because we were really light for the direct to garment. I went too far. All right. So we'll do 350 for about 7 or 8 seconds, and then we're going to try and do a cool peel. Pull this out of here. Remove our cover sheet. Peel that off. All right. So that is the Sublastop on a left chest application. Now normally, as you saw with the direct-to-garment printer, our 2 heat applications were up in the 60-second range. So we had at least 2 full minutes of press engage time. When you do heat transfers in print cut, the materials vary a little bit, but you're looking at more 8 to 15 seconds of press engage time that you have to deal with. So you can pump out a lot more shirts in a lot less time on the press with print and cut. One of the other things that you'll notice, we're printing multiple logos here at once. You'll see in the production process that this lends itself to a little bit lower cost of labor and the time that you have to spend. So we could print multiple graphics or multiple jobs at one time. So we could take our Rubik's Cube logo, and we could add whatever other logos that you have that you wanted, our STAHLS TV logo, our Mossy Oaks logo, and print them all at one time. So we can gang up multiple jobs and print those all at once. Let's head over to the computer while that finishes up printing. And when I say head over to the computer, I mean right here. All right. Let me know when we're switched over there. Okay. All right. So here is a print cut return on investment spreadsheet. So what this spreadsheet is, for lack of a better term, is we went out and researched a number of items that you can make with a print cut machine. We know what the cost is to produce because we manufacture, sell the materials and the machines. So we went out and researched online what recommended retail pricing was. So this is from just an online survey that we did here internally at STAHLS. And what you have is a listing. This isn't a comprehensive list, but it's a listing of a lot of the products that you can make. So let's start with some of the really high profit items that can make your monthly payment while you pay your employees with all the other business. So a printed banner with a 30-inch machine, the maximum size banner you're going to be able to do is 30 inches. So for a 30-inch by 66-inch banner, your average cost to produce is between $8 and $12. Now that difference is going to be, you know, did you use a 10 mil banner thickness, a 12, a 13, whatever weight banner you're using, and then also your total ink coverage. So we give you a range of $8 to $12 to make that banner, including all of your material and all of the ink that you would use. The recommended retail, or what the going price is online for this type of banner, for this size banner, is anywhere between $70 and $100. If you're selling online, I would imagine that you're probably going to be selling towards the lower end of that. But if you're competing with online retailers and you're local and you can provide a quicker turnaround or whatever your competitive advantage is, maybe you have the relationship with your customers, you command as $100 for that banner. So your potential profit on just one printed banner is $92. And your time to make that banner is probably in the range of 15 to 20 minutes. So you can pull off about 3 of those an hour, just to give you an idea. Let's go another high profit non-apparel item before we come back to the apparel. Fabric repositionable wall graphic. So again, the limitation is pretty much just the size machine that you go with, because obviously the larger the banner or the larger the wall graphic, the more that you will be able to charge for it. But a fabric repositionable wall graphic, much like the STAHLS TV one that we showed you a little bit earlier, 24-inch by 34-inch or 2 foot by 3 foot, your cost to produce that using a full color graphic is anywhere between $7 and $10. Now, if you go online to some of the main retailers that you may know who sell fabric repositionable wall graphics, a custom wall graphic of that size is going to cost your customer anywhere between $65 to $85. So your potential profit on that one item is $78. So again, sell 4 banners a month or sell 4 repositionable wall graphics a month, and you'll basically be making your monthly payment on a piece of print cut equipment. Actually, if you go with the smaller piece of print cut equipment, it would be even less than that. One of the other things, we showed you the satin canvas. One of the best selling or highest profit items with the print cut machine is the satin canvas. This one just says with a wedding pick because that's a really popular thing that people do. So average size might be a 26 by 19 satin canvas that somebody's going to stretch and hang on their wall. Your cost to produce that using material and ink is anywhere between $4 and $6.50. The recommended retail, or what that's commanding online, is anywhere between $80 to $110. So if you can find a few weddings to do every month or a few kids' picks to do every month, you can return $106 per item. Now, the heat transfer side is a little bit different because you're probably, odds are, you're not selling just one t-shirt to run with this print cut process. You're probably selling maybe a job of 6. Maybe you're looking at this as a supplement to your current screen printing or embroidery business, and you want to do some short runs, or people forget to order 5 or 6 shirts and they come back later in the year to order them. So a left chest graphic like the one that we were printing using our STAHLS Tech material, 4x2, is going to cost you about 25 to 40 cents for the graphic. So that's the material that you're printing on, that is the mask that you're using, and that is the ink that you're using. The recommended retail for an application that you're going to add to a shirt, and again, this says graphic only because this doesn't include the t-shirt, is for every application you can charge anywhere from normally $4 to $7.50 for a potential profit of about $7.25 per t-shirt, not including the markup that you will have on the t-shirt. You can see these other items here as well. If anybody would like this print cut return on investment spreadsheet, you can just simply type in the chat that you would like it, put some yeses in, and we'll send that out to you once the class is complete. So if you just type in the chat, yes, print cut, we'll send that over to you, along with the links to everything else that we're showing you here today. All right, so any questions before we get back into the process?
We want to know how much the maintenance is on it.
How much the maintenance? Great question. Sorry I didn't cover that sooner. The maintenance on the print cut units is actually quite inexpensive. All you have to do on that machine, there's no ink flushes to do on a monthly basis. There are two powers on the machine. So there's a main power and there's a sub power. I'll show you where they are. The main power is on the back here. As long as that is on, you can turn your sub power off, and the machine will wake itself up at programmed intervals to run a little bit of ink through the lines and essentially maintenance itself. That cost is so minimal that they really don't measure it. You're probably talking a couple bucks a month in maintenance cost on any one of the print cut devices. The additional maintenance that you would have to do on the machine is cleaning around the print head. We recommend you do that once every 2 or 3 weeks, and it takes about 10 minutes. All that happens is the print head, which is housed here, moves itself over to this bay. You undo this thumb screw, and you take a solvent and a swab that is provided with the machine and clean around the print head and lock it back up. So again, about 10 minutes every 2 to 3 weeks, your running maintenance cost is dollars per month, not hundreds. Hope that answers the question. Any other questions, Jody? Okay, so let's get back into the process here. So I am going to cut off one of these jobs that we did here with scissors. Now, one of the other upgrades in the 30 and the 54-inch machines is that there is a sheet cut feature. It will actually do the cutting off for you, so you don't have to come over to the machine and use your scissors to cut off your graphics. There's also extended warranties, faster print speeds, which I'll come back into the VersaWorks software and show you. But basically, we've printed. The machine has come back and contour cut around the graphic because we showed you the cut line in the software, so it cut where we said. And I'm just going to cut this down into a more manageable piece to do what we call weeding. Since a lot of the room already owns a print cut machine or a vinyl cutter, you're probably familiar with this process. Grab our STAHLS TV weeder. I'm going to pick up an edge. Now our go-to material for t-shirts is actually called Express Print. And with Express Print, I could take this corner and just rip away. I'm not going to do that with this Tech product because it is thinner. And as you can see, it's stretchier than the Express Print. So there's a weeding technique that tends to work better, which is pulling away from the edges rather than pulling at an angle against them. After you get started, you can certainly pull at an angle, but pulling away from the edge is very helpful and will minimize the amount of waste that you have or loss in the weeding process. Now these graphics, again, are only costing you these particular ones, 25 to 30 cents a piece to make. So it might not seem like a big deal to lose a couple of them. That's certainly less expensive than ruining a t-shirt, but we want to minimize waste as much as possible. So the next part of the process, we are ready to apply our mask, which is essentially, for those of you who are familiar with sign vinyl, it's the same thing as a sign tape, except this particular mask is heat sensitive and releases once heat is applied to it, and it won't melt underneath the heat of a heat press. Okay, we have a question. Can you use scrap pieces for printing 1 or 2 designs? The answer to that question is yes, but carefully. Specifically on the BN20 machine, it doesn't have it doesn't deal quite as well with waste as the larger machines do, just because of the way the pinch rollers are set up. But yes, you can use smaller scrap pieces and print to those. So we've laid down our mask, which is just a sticky material. If you buy CAD cut material now, this is the sticky material that's applied to your CAD cut. And we're going to use a squeegee just to push the mask down onto the graphic. I'm going to flip it over. Find this works best with this particular material to flip it over and peel away. It pushed hard enough there on my edges. Right. Okay. All right, so you can hear that. And I'm saving the back of the mask to put these transfers back down onto. All right, so now I can cut these apart. I can hang on to them for a few days if I want to use them later. The longer, normally we get the question, how long can I let these sit? You don't want to leave them sit for weeks at a time, because what happens is the ink can actually migrate back into the mask, and the mask will lose its stickiness. So that's the risk of letting them sit for long periods of time. They can definitely sit for a week, 2, maybe even 3 weeks, but you probably wouldn't want to let them sit for any longer than a month. All right, so I'm just making this a little easier to grab, and then again, all we're doing is peeling off the backing, and we're ready to go to the heat press, which we already did. All right, so I want to show you quickly a difference in speed, because when we're talking about return on investment, the BN20, although it's quite attractive from how much you actually have to invest to get started, it can quickly run into capacity issues, which is why if you talk to most print cut owners, most of them will tell you buy the largest print cut machine that you can afford out of the gate, to where you can accommodate all of the banners and the repositionable wall graphics and that type of stuff down the road. So let's go back to the software, Jody. Right. Let me know when we're live there. I know there's a bit of a delay. Okay, great. All right, so here we saw that this particular job on the BN20 was going to take us about 5 minutes to print on the BN20. So if we go to the VS300i and do the same job, I'm just going to put in the same types of things here. So we want actually to fill up the page. You can fit one more because you're wider. So we'll do 12. So we're going to get 2 more graphics than we got off of the BN20. So 20% more coming off of the VS300i. If we choose standard, in about half of the time. So we're getting 20% more. Actually, let me change this, I'm sorry, to the same profile, because that will adjust for us. Textile heat transfer. Okay, so we have 4 minutes, and we're getting 20% more off of the VS300i. And that percentage only goes up as you continue to add graphics to this. So the 54-inch machine, you would get about 20 to 30% more than you would get on the 30-inch machine as well. So just to give you an idea, capacity-wise, 4 minutes to print 10 heat transfers, and then you saw our production process over at the table of weeding, masking, and the heat application is 10 to 15 seconds. All right, any questions right now? Okay. All right, I'm going to come back to our main camera, and we'll do a quick check here as to where we are. Let's launch our other poll question. We did printer cutters. Let's see how many of us have in the room already own a vinyl cutter. So Jody will launch that for you. Just give us a yes or a no on if you already own a vinyl cutter. I'm going to grab another quick drink here. All right, how do we stand there, Jody? Okay. 60% of you have responded. Wait a few more seconds. All right, let's close it down. And what are our numbers there? How many of us own a vinyl cutter? Okay, 83% of us own a vinyl cutter, which leaves 17 no. Okay. All right, so that's good, because most of you already know how the process of a vinyl cutter works. If you saw the print cut process, which you did, a vinyl cutter is essentially the same process, except you're not getting a full color graphic directly off of that machine. You're probably cutting a single color vinyl, whether it's part of a 1, 2, or 3 color design. Every color that you want to add to a shirt, you have to cut again and also weed again and apply again. So there's extra steps in the process. However, your initial investment is going to be significantly less than if you go with the print cut machine. For those of you, the 17% that don't already have a vinyl cutter, Your investment level can be as little as about $500 or as much as $2, $3, $4, depending on the size. Again, machine that you get, you can be upwards of $5,000 or $6,000. Most of our customers land in the $1,500 to $2,000 range with a Graphtec or a Roland vinyl cutter. So I'm going to switch to Joe. He's over at the Graphtec vinyl cutter. And we're starting to cut close on time. So what I want to show you most importantly is the finishes that the machine can achieve to where you can see what you can sell to your customer. So again, the process is the same. You send your graphic from a software. Again, we provide cadworkslive.com to you. If you're not great at art, it's a great solution for you to use. You send it to the machine. It will cut around it just like the BN20 cut around the full color graphic. And then you weed away the excess and you heat apply. So just to give you some idea on finishes, a bag with a standard one color finish that's just black or white is probably going to sell for a little bit less than one that has this holographic finish to it. So you can achieve holographic finishes. I think you'll be able to see on camera that this is a reflective finish on a nylon jacket. So again, we're applying to synthetics, cotton, multiple different types of items with just a vinyl cutter. Here on the press, we have a jersey with a glitter finish. This was for a promotional bar crawl. On this performance wear, we have a neon finish, more glitter options. This is a multicolor glitter. And again, what these options do, what these finishes do, is they allow you to sell a garment for more than what you might normally be able to sell a garment for with just a standard single color finish. And then again, another neon again on performance wear. So you can decorate items that are more expensive to where your profit per unit is higher than just printing a t-shirt, because at a certain point, a t-shirt only commands so much value. However, a performance item or a track jacket or a safety jacket, even though your cost is higher, your actual profit, your time in cutting, weeding, and applying is the same. So you can make more money for the same amount of time with the print cut and the vinyl cut process. All right, so any questions on vinyl cutting? I don't want to cut it short, but since 87% of us already own them, I just want to make sure we understand the finishes. And what I really want to show you is how we print some of these additional items that you may not be able to print right now on your heat press. No questions? Okay. All right, Joe, I'm going to have you follow me over to the heat press. Just going to grab a couple items here to take with us. All right, we'll take this jersey. Okay. All right, go to camera 1. All right. So, at the heat press, we have, again, we're set at the 350 for the direct-to-garment printing, but the key for heat press, the initial investment on a press, this particular press is $1,850, and then what I'm going to show you is a lot of the additional items that you can print, like how you actually print these items and return more on your heat press investment. I'm talking to the camera and it's not even looking at me. There we go. All right. Sorry about that. My cameraman reminded me here. He keeps me in line. All right. So this Fusion heat press it's an $1,850 investment. I'll take the shirt off of it. And what makes it worth a little bit more, what allows you to return more investment, is these number of items that you can make with the machine, from the bags to the sweatshirts, to the hoodies, to the performance wear, to you name the item that we showed you, pretty much outside of caps, you can print with this heat press. This particular press has what we call a quick change platen. So all I'm doing to change this platen is pulling out this knob and turning it. And then once I do that, I have the ability to remove the 16 by 20 platen that is on the machine. So I'm going to throw this down here. First thing that we're going to press is, let's try a leg or a sleeve. So we have these optional platens, and you'll have to excuse me getting down to get them. So this is our leg and sleeve platen. It's a 16 by 20 or a 6 by 20 size, and it drops in, and there were no tools required to switch from printing whatever our 16 by 20 graphic was, a jersey, to a pant leg or a sleeve. So I have these pajama pants here, and if we wanted to print the leg, normally on a 16 by 20 press, I'd be trying to figure out how to get this to lay on here. I have all of these items underneath. The key, as most of you I'm sure know, to a good heat application is accurate time, temperature, and pressure. While I'm starting to load this, I'm going to ask Jody to launch our last poll, and that's how many of you own a heat press. You could just put in yes or no while I load these. That would be perfect. So I'm going to load these pajama pants on and combine the quick change platen with the threadability of this fusion press, and what we get on these pants is a completely flat surface that we can apply to. So not only does this allow us to print a wider range of items and return more on our investment, it also gives us less waste. So we have less risk of ruining these garments when we get accurate time, temperature, and pressure on a flat surface. So I'm going to push this item in. I'll give it a quick preheat here, just to knock out some of the moisture and wrinkles that may be in it. Right. And then I have already pre-cut and weeded a graphic here out of glitter that we can put on. So this would be for a sorority. So it opens up new markets, it gives us additional finishes, and it opens up a lot of new items that we can print. So we'll push that in there. We'll bump this up. The glitter applies somewhere between 15 and 20 seconds at 320. Again, we're at 350, but we also have this cover on top, which we would normally recommend taking off. So I'm going to give it a shot at 15 seconds. See how it works. All right, so there's a question, and then what were our poll results? Everyone has a heat press. Awesome.
I do not have a quick change platen on my hot tonic. Can I still change the platen?
The question is, I do not have a quick change platen on my Hottronics. Can I still change the platen? If it is a 15 by 15 size or higher, yes, but tools will be required, and it takes about 10 or 15 minutes. You basically just need a wrench to change those platens out. So yes, it's possible. And one of the really nice things is if it's a 15 by 15 or 16 by 20 press, you can add a heat press caddy and make the machine threadable to where you can load these types of items. And we'll go back over to that max press. Actually, Joe, if you want to follow me real quick. We're already on you. All right, so sorry about the shaky view getting over here, but this is what we call a tabletop caddy. We also have a pedestal caddy that's freestanding. So this gives you the threadability on a press that normally wasn't threadable. You can see the base of it is here, and we'd be running into this item. So this tabletop caddy is $179. The pedestal caddy is $299, and it makes your machine threadable whether or not it has the quick change platen. All right, Joe, if you don't mind following me back over here, watch your head. You guys are kind of getting a behind-the-scenes look using the whole room here. You can see our cameras and our lights. So this glitter flake is a cool peel, so it's had time to cool down while we were over there. So we're peeling it off, and we've decorated some pants, some PJ pants on the leg. Now, if we wanted to decorate a ladies' t-shirt, we wouldn't want to use this platen, so we quick change it out. Lay it down. I'm going to grab our 11 by 15. Now this platen, depending on your graphic, it will load landscape or it will load portrait. So that really depends on what your graphic is or what garment you're using. I think I have some ladies' garments back here that we can use. So this is a slightly smaller application area, and again, rather than laying it on top, actually I'm going to switch this. Okay, and lock that back in. Now I'm able to thread this lady's garment, and get a flat surface for the transfer that we're going to apply. Again, I'm going to give a quick preheat, knocking out any moisture or wrinkles. Take the pressure back down a little bit. There we go. Okay. Right. And we're going to grab, so that was a CAD cut product, that glitter flake. What I'm going to grab now is a screen printed heat transfer. So with just your press and with no additional equipment, you can achieve a screen print finish. So this transfer is from Transfer Express. All they do is screen print to this piece of paper. They have artwork that you can choose from, or you can send them your artwork to do custom designs. So we'll lay it here on this lady's shirt. And Jody, can you remind me what the application was on this second-wise? Okay, so it should be 4 seconds for 340. With this cover, I'm just going to do a few extra seconds on there. And we have a screen print finish on a lady's garment. One of the other really cool things that you can do with this press is press one of the new transfer styles. If you show up, if you're interested in more STAHLS TV classes, hopefully most of you have been to our Heat Press Success class. Since you all own a heat press, I would highly recommend signing up for the next version of that class. It walks you through all of the different finishes that you can achieve with your heat press using just transfers. So this is a lace glitter transfer that's been combined with rhinestones and some glitter flake. So this was 3 applications. We put down our lace glitter, we put down our glitter flake, we put down our rhinestones. All possible with the press. And then one more cool application that you can offer to your customers is shoe customization. So we can take this off and just change the platen out again. Load our shoe platen on, lock it into place. I won't actually print on these because we have to use them for something else, but we just load our shoe on here and we can apply fashion film, which is a CAD cut product, onto this area. If your shoe has a collapsible heel, you can load the heel onto it as well and print there. This particular shoe does not, but you can do that like on with Converse shoes. So the press gives you lots of opportunity to return, and if you don't have or if you're not interested in investing a lot of money into a print cut device or into a vinyl cutter, there are companies out there, STAHLS being one of them, that specialize in making transfers. All you have to do is invest in the heat press. You don't have to invest employees to do weeding or masking. All you have to do is place your orders with STAHLS, and it comes to you ready to apply. So it's a really quick return on investment there. Any other questions right now where we stand? Okay, 2 questions. Can you alter an old swinger to be able to be threaded? I don't think so. Not that I'm aware of. No. I'm going to say no on that one. Okay.
What printer for full color graphics would you recommend to use with existing cutters and STAHLS tech supplies?
Okay. What printer would we recommend to use with an existing cutter and STAHLS tech supplies? So we would be looking for potentially a print-only device. When you shop the market, I mean, we have a lot of customers who use Roland print-only devices. They do a print-only device. You could also use a Mamaki print-only device. If you go the Mamaki route and you research that, we do recommend using the true solvent inks from them and not the Eco Solvent. They're much more, they test much better with our heat transfer materials. So printer only, look at Mamaki True Solvent. Roland Eco Solvent would be the 2 that we recommend for STAHLS Tech products. Any other questions? Okay, let me grab my clipboard here and make sure we have covered everything that we need to cover. Go back to camera 1. Joe off the hook here. All right. So hopefully what we've done here today has been helpful to you. I know we ran a little bit short on time, but I want to show you, if you have one more minute, I do want to show you one more thing. If you haven't visited stahlstv.com, I would encourage you to do that. Jody, if you can flip to the computer real quick, I'll just show you just a quick outline of what STAHLStv.com is. It is, if you're going there for the first time, you will have access to the 3 videos in the top section. All you need to do is register to get full access to the site. So our listing of live events is here at STAHLStv.com, our full listing of live classes. And then there's all kinds of helpful videos in here. Actually, there's 225 or something like that right now, and more are being added every week. So you can visit STAHLStv.com. You can sort your videos by all of the different presenters that we have who give these live classes. You can sort by the type of equipment that you have. There's general training. There's how to make more money. We even have some content in Spanish as well. And there's also a forum on here. If you have a question and you need help semi-immediately, just shoot us a message on the forum and one of our users will get back to you really quickly. And there's also a chat feature here that you can contact us on. So if you haven't already, visit STAHLStv.com and register. At the end, as we wrap up this class, there's going to be a survey that's going to launch, and we really request and encourage you to fill out that survey. It helps us make these classes better. And there's also an option in there for you if you're interested in making a future investment into a piece of equipment and you'd like a personal consultation. You can request that in that survey. So we will give you a call and kind of walk you through all the options, answer any questions that you might not have been able to answer today, and just guide you down the road that we think will make you the most successful, because again, at the end of the day, we want your success to be our success. So thank you for attending today's class on STAHLS TV. We'll do one more check with Jody to see if there's any questions. Okay, so please hang on the line or on your computer, fill out the survey that we're about to launch, and thanks again for attending this STAHLS TV live class.